Funding for The Rotor Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. There are few things more satisfying to build or give than a beautiful pine chest. After completing the unique raised panels which give our pine chest that professional look, today we'll show you how to create a beautifully molded base and top on part 2 of the pine chest, next in the Rotor Workshop.
Welcome back to the Rotor Workshop. In part 1, we finished the panels and the moldings. What are we doing today?
I'm going to make the moldings in the lid, and I'm going to make the moldings in the base.
And I'm going to go ahead and make the tray and bottom part of it.
Okay.
So what are we going to, you're going to go set up your rudder bit for the moldings?
You get this away, and we'll start.
Okay.
Just going to tighten this bit down in here, and we got the table all set. We're ready to make some fancy molds here. This cord down inside. And so I don't have to reach for it. And we'll drop the rotor into place. Now, we'll raise that up and let you have a little quick look at that cutter in it. I don't have it plugged in here. We've got a neat cove here at the bottom. And then inside here we got a bullnose, a full half bullnose inside of it. And then there's 2 little shelves on the edge here which makes up the bead for it. We're going to use a fence here. And the fence has got 2 pins in the back end here and 2 holes, so it locks that right distance in for it. Now, we'll just set that down. And what we need to really do here is get a couple of clamps on it, put that into place. Now, the sticks that we've got to mold consists of 4 long ones and 4 short ones, because we've not only got the lid to do, we've also got the base to do. So we're going to set this up, and I'd like to show you a setup that we've got here. And our sticks are this size. And we need to do is just run these inside of here. So I'm going to just have to have a quick peek here. I'm going to raise that cutter up just a little more than I have in here, about like that. That'll be fine. And we're going to run this by. Now here's the problem when we're using narrow sticks. You need to be able to hold that in tight. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start in here and I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to show you some neat hold downs that we've got here, and they're kind of spring loaded and they're shop made. So before you start and plug it in, just rotate the bit so it doesn't be, make sure it doesn't touch the fence is what we're really after inside of it. The poly will be maybe okay in it, but if you got in a solid piece of wood fence, did that, it could peel the carbide off for you. So make sure that it's clear. And we got a variable speed on this, so we're going to run this cutter a little slower, just let you see what it runs like. There's the mold, there's the cove that you see, and here's the bull nose on it. We have a flat edge at the top, and there's a little ridge down in here. Now what I'm going to do is just set that back inside, and we're going to bring another little gadget up here, and this is our hold downs. And see, these are made out of ash. The grain is straight in there, and you got a lot of give in them. So we'll just set this up, and we'll put a clamp in here, and we'll put another clamp at the other end. And you can lock them in just about as tight as you like. And we'll just tap that inside here. What that's doing is just putting a little tension on them clamps. And it keeps your fingers away of having to hold it out in there. So we'll just tap that up here on the other side too. And then we'll tighten them clamps down finally. In your shop there, it's kind of nice to have lots of those. You'll never wear them out. And they do work. And it's wood against wood, so you're not getting any marking. What I could do is just have that a little bit tighter in it. So we'll just move it up a little more in here. You can put quite a bit of tension on it. And let's get our sticks ready here. I've got some long ones, and I got 4 short ones to run here. So we'll run, and when I get done in here, we'll have a peek at what we've got. Let's start it off. couple of little things I'd like to point out to you. If you have an opportunity to read the grain of your wood in it, the grain is kind of coming off this direction, and you notice that's what I fed into it. The other thing you might end up in here is at the very end, when I came through, you might end up with just a little ripple on the end of it. That's good because you make the sticks longer, and that's where you miter them off. Now, we got these sticks done in it. What we need to do is the top, and I need to chuck up a 1/4 inch slot cutter. So we'll just take this down and take this off. We're going to use that again for the molding, so we won't set it too far away. And we get rid of this fence in it and change cutters. And this time we'll unplug the router again. Find my wrenches down in the debris here. And get one wrench in here. Kind of nice when you get 2 wrenches, people. You can squeeze them together to get it apart. That way you're not fighting it. And we'll chuck that up. And there's the slot cutter. Now we're going to cut a slot in the tabletop all the way around the edge and in on the 4 molds that it takes to cover it with. This is the slot cutter. It's 1/4 inch wide in here. The bearing has no bit, and we're not going to use it. We're going to use a fence instead. So that's what it looks like. It's just got 4 cutters around on the slot cutter. So we'll mount that in here, and we'll tighten it up and make sure we get that in there tight. Now, setting of the depth of it. When we set the depth of this, I want to be a 1/4 inch. So we got our 1/4 inch bar in here, and we're just going to make sure we get this down here to about 1/4. And, oh, that was a good quick set, that one was. Okay, now drop the router into place, and we need a fence. We got a shop-made fence here this time, folks, and what we need to do is make a cavity for that bit to run. So we're going to clamp one end in here. I'm going to start the cutter, and then we're going to swing it into the cut. And it'll cut its own track to run in. We'll get this tightened inside of here. And just about like that, free to flow. Now we'll plug it in. Got some power. Let it go. Now what we want to do is isolate that bearing on there. So we'll put this little tab up, and about like that will be good. And put the second clamp on. And we're ready to go here. Now, we'll go to the top. Always look at your pieces and pick a face side. And I've done that. I got a face side down. And always do the end grain first. So here we run. Now we got to go to the moldings. This time it's face side down, and we'll use our hold down. So I'm going to run a ways in and then stop, and we'll put the clamps on it. Now, we'll just put a little pressure down on that, lock that in. And we don't need quite as much pressure this time because we're just cutting a slot in it as compared to when we cut the mold. Makes a little different there. Ah, perfect. Now we'll run it. There's the slot that I cut in. You'll notice it's thick on one side because this is thicker than the top or the molding, so it sticks down. We need it flush at the top, and that made the center. And we've used some Baltic birch in here. And just to show you what nice spline you get, that fits onto the top, and that makes a set. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to finish those molds up. I got 2 long ones and another short one. Let's take a look in on Rick and see how he's coming.
All we've just finished cutting here, folks, is the tray dividers. And these are a 1/2-inch dado that's on either pieces of the side for the tray, and that's going to receive the 2 tray dividers. If you notice when I was cutting these, that the both ends are exactly equidistant. That leaves us a large tray divider in the middle and 2 smaller ones on either side. Again, that's up to your own to decide what you want to do with that. The bit I've got in here is a 1/2 inch, and the height of this bit here is half the thickness of the material. I was using 1/2 inch, so I should be up about 1/4 inch. I'm going to change it now, and let's set up and do box joints on the ends of the tray. So we'll start off by tearing this down and taking the pieces out of it, and we're going to change our bit from a 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. So we'll set this fence aside. I don't need this one anymore. We'll set our pieces down here so we can get the router on top and get it so we can change it. And got it unplugged. Every time before you go ahead and take the router out of the table mounting system, you should unplug it. And we'll take this bit out of here now. And let's take a look at the bit that we're going to start here now. We're using a 1/4 inch spiral bit. Again, it's a straight cutter. And what we're going to do is make 1/4 inch box joints. So to start off with, we'll go load this up. And this one here doesn't have a 1/2 inch on it, so it has a sleeve in place. So you make sure that you get your sleeves in tight. And let's tighten up this bit. Now, spacer fences, we're just going to raise the bit up so that it shows us what we've got. Drop it back down in place. And I'm going to go ahead and get the spacer fence. It's a very simple fence. It's got, the principle is very simple. It's a 1/4 inch bit, a 1/4 inch space, and a 1/4 inch fence. We've already got the holes in place because we do box joints quite often. We've gone ahead and mounted them in place so that we don't have to find that position every time. So we'll use these bolts and lock them in place, tighten it up, and get the nut on the back here, roughly tighten it. And again, what did I say? 1/4 inch bit, 1/4 inch space, and 1/4 inch fence. And so that would be the next thing we want to look at. You can tighten or loosen it by having the space vary. If the space is larger than 1/4 inch, it's going to be too tight. If the space is less than 1/4 inch, it's going to be loose. So I'll take a 1/4 inch piece here, and let's just double check to see how close we are to being in there. Oh, it's just right at 1/4. So we're just going to loosen that up a little bit because there'll have to be some room for some glue. So I'm just going to move the bolts off to the one side here a bit, and we'll check it one more time and tighten these up. And we'll just double check that to make sure I've got that right. And that looks good right now. Okay, let's get the pieces that we're going to work on. We have the 2 longer pieces, but we also have a couple of smaller pieces that we're going to work with too. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead and clamp them together and use them both at one time. And I've already got the smaller one clamped. I'm going to make that my second cut. I'm going to go ahead and get another clamp here. And before we get too far here, we're going to start finding the pieces here that go together, and we're going to go ahead and mark the side that goes closest to the fence. So we'll go ahead and mark that in place, and the next thing we want to do is we want to line these up. I want them to be exactly the way they're going to be put together, so I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp on them and cut them both at the same time instead of cutting individual ones. The important part here, folks, is that we get it down tight and that they match off onto the one side so they are exactly, when they come to put them together, that they do in fact match. Okay, so we've got the clamp in place, we've got the bit in place, we've got the distance set up apart. The only thing we don't have is the depth. Now we want that depth to be 1/2 inch, and I guess what we could do here is the material's 1/2 inch, so I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bar here, and I'm just going to raise up that cutter. Now if you're a little bit long, that's not a big deal. If you're a little bit short, that becomes a big deal. If you're long, you just have to sand the fingers. If you're short, you have to sand the whole box. All right, so now that we've got that in place, we'll get ourselves a push block, bring that forward here, and again, you noticed I've marked the pieces here that keep tight to the fence. Let's go ahead and cut those first. And there we've got the longer ones. Now what we need to do is we've got to make the smaller ones here, because what they have to do to be flush, they have to offset. So we're going to have to use an offset block to go ahead and get our first cut on our smaller pieces. So I'm going to set these two down on the side here and get my offset block here. We'll show it to you. All we've done here to make this offset block is put a groove in it. And to do that, it's just flip it down on this side, put a groove into the board, run it right through. And now what this block does is turns around, fits onto the fence, and gives us a bit of an offset in place here. Now we need to put a clamp on that because it's right tight to this bit. They might want to pull the piece around for it. So we're going to put the clamp on, tighten that down in place. And all we're going to use this for is our first cut. Now remember, we put the lines on these pieces here, so what we want to do is make sure that the line stays to the fence, okay? So let's go ahead and cut those now. And we'll flip it over, make the other cut. Now we've got our first cut. Now if you remember our very first cut on our bigger pieces, it had a pin in it. Now this has the groove in it, so we're in place where they'll match. So we'll take off the block now. When you're taking this block off, make sure that it's turned off before you go ahead and try and remove the block. Let's not try and remove the block while the tool is still running. And we'll set the block to the side, and let's complete these cuts now. And we've got the pieces cut now on both sides. The next operation is to go ahead and put the groove that's going to receive the bottom that's going to be in this piece. Before I do that, though, if you notice what we did, a little technique, is we used a block in the back, and when we were making the cuts, we made the cuts and then we removed it before we pulled the block back. That sort of covers you up over that bit while you're making those moves. All right, so what I need to do to start with, I'm just going to leave the setup as it is here, and what we're going to do is we're going to get some masking tape. And I'm going to turn off the machine here, unplug it, because I'm going to be working around it. We're going to blow this off to make sure there's no dust. Why I'm putting the masking tape on the end here is it's going to go ahead and position myself for my second cuts here, my start and stop cuts that I have to make. So we'll put that on. And let's find the center of this bit, which is very easy. It's right, basically it's right here, so we'll just go ahead and put a line on that side. And we want to put about a 1/4 inch on either side of this, and that's our starts and stops that we're going to work with our smaller pieces. And I think I'll start with those pieces. Okay, so now what I want to do is take these pieces. And why do we need that? Because, again, you see the line here? If I was to run this right through, I would have a notch in the end of this piece, and then you would see the notch. What I want to do is hide that, and this is the one that's going to receive the bottom. So the first thing we need to do is set the depth of the cut of this, which is half our thickness of our material. So we'll drop it down to being half the thickness of material. Once we've got that now, if you notice these marks, I'm just going to lift it up and set the router bit on top of that, and that's going to allow me to get into the start and then go through it. And it's going to keep that little piece on the end here so that it's going to hide what the bottom looks like on the inside. So let's go ahead now and plug it in. And the next step we're going to do is go ahead and make this cut. Now this is a little tricky. When you're making this cut, you want to make sure you're on a solid ground before you set it down on top of the piece to make the cut. And there's our groove. We've got it started here and stopped, and that'll allow us to go ahead and make sure that there's no chip outs. The only other way you can do that is if you put a little block in the end there to prevent you being able to see that. So I'll finish this piece, and then we'll go ahead and do the large pieces. And again, make sure you got... And here's the groove that's going to receive the bottom. Yeah. You notice how the groove for the shelf comes into place and ties it in. And again, when we flip it over here, you can't see it from the other side. It's time for Router Bits, where we highlight viewer mail and projects. Our viewer mail for this time is from Neil of Oregon.
Dear Bob and Rick, just a short note to let you know I finished the toy box and 4 hope chests for Christmas. The first project was a toy chest for my granddaughter Georgianne. Using a laser, the toy chest has Georgianne's name engraved in the lid and sliding storage shelf. The second project was for my other granddaughter Ashlyn. This chest is lined with aromatic cedar and made of oak with raised panels. The other 2 cedar chests are made of oak using raised panels as the sides. I used a corner mold to tie them together. The top of this chest has an oak molding fastened around 3 sides to hold a padded cushion in place. The kids love their chests, and I'm having so much fun with my router. Keep up the good work and have a terrific new year.
Well, we got it all together here. Rick, have you got the tray?
Yes, I've got the tray here finished. We'll just slide that inside of the cabinet.
It is. Hold that together in the bottom here. There's the moldings and the foot pieces on it.
And we got the panel pieces done. We just have the top to look at there now.
Let me lift the top up, Rick.
Okay.
We've got another part to put on it here.
And we're just going to dry fit these
the
moldings. Got the spline in place, and we'll put the moldings down in tight here. All right. Let's
You got an end?
I got an end. You got an end? Flip it on top here. Let's see how she fits. Ooh, we just have to put the hardware on and finish it.
Got it.
All right. Hey, watch us next time on the Router Workshop.
We'd like to hear from you. You can email us at the address on your screen. Send your comments, questions, or project ideas to the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 608, Chamberlain, South Dakota 57325. Or in Canada, the Router Workshop, Post Office Box 280, Ely, Manitoba ROH-OHO. To learn more about the Router Workshop, visit us at the internet address on your screen. With a router and a little creative thinking, you can create some very unique and truly beautiful projects. Bob and Rick show you how to select and use hardware as well as apply decorative molds along tops, sides, and bases. Next time, right here in the Router Workshop. Funding for The Rotor Workshop is provided in part by Hitachi Power Tools, manufacturers of a full range of construction and woodworking power tools. For $16.99 plus $4.99 shipping and handling, you can order Bob and Rick Rosenthal's The Rotor, a 130-page book which includes a plan to build the rotor table and bench, plus numerous tips, techniques, and educational information. Call 1-800-803-1449.